Hi, my name is Miranda Young-Jahangeer and I am a senior lecturer in the Drama and Performance Studies program at the University of KwaZulu-Natal here in Durban on the east coast of South Africa. And I'm very happy to share with you some of the workshop games and exercises that we've been doing. The first game I'd like to share with you is a game called the name game. The idea that we share each other's names with each other is an important first step in the process of working together. It's quite typical that any workshop would begin with some form of name game, as if we are to build trust with each other and we're to have a successful and creative process, it's important that we introduce ourselves to each other. So we go clap, clap, slap. So let's just do this for a bit. Okay, you got it. Okay, so it's a call and response, right? And it starts with Mina, which means I am. You don't speak. So I say Mina, and then everyone responds when. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Mina, wait, when. So you stay when you hit your lines. Mina, 1, 2, when. 1, 2. So the name game that we played today is a Zulu name game, which was actually taught to me by women in the Westville female prison. I work in a prison in Durban, and it's called Mina Wena. Mina in Zulu means I am, and Wena means you are. And as you can see in the clip that will be shown, it starts with a basic rhythm, and it's a call and response. You can change the language to whatever you want. It doesn't have to be in isiZulu. And we go around the circle with each person saying I am, and then the group repeating you are, and then you introduce your name, Miranda, and then they call back Miranda, and you move around the circle. It doesn't matter if people lose the rhythm as long as they're a group that keep consistent, and by the end of the game everybody has introduced themselves to the group in a rhythmic and joyful way. When doing any theatre workshop, and particularly when you're working with groups or communities that may carry stress in their body, or you're trying to create discussions around experiences that people find as oppressive, it's important to bring a consciousness towards the body so that the groups can start to recognize that we hold stress in our bodies. Many of us take on stress and it resides in our bodies, but we may not be necessarily aware of where that is, and that is why we emphasize this idea of knowing the body, and a lot of the games that we played are about asking the participants to come to know their bodies more. So the next game is a game which is done in silence, and it is also about exploring how the body can be expressive, which is the next step in the process of understanding how we can release tension and work towards a wellness of mind and body and spirit. And in this we sit in a circle, and one by one the participant will enter the space and they're asked to form a shape with their body. It can be absolutely anything, and then we almost create like a sentence or a conversation through physical shapes. So the first person will start and form a shape and freeze, and then the second person in silence steps up and responds or reacts to that shape. They can mirror the shape, they can look at the negative spaces that the shape has created and fill those with their own body. They can use different levels. They can create an attitude towards the shape. It really is up to the participant. And then as they respond, they freeze, then the first person sits down, and then the next person in the circle will stand up and do the same thing, responding to that shape. And so in silence we go almost in a kind of animation of shapes around the circle, creating an expressive sentence with our collective bodies. The next game is a process which leads towards using image theatre, which will be described later. The prequel to this is the game with the negative shapes, so that the students, the participants, understand that they can use their bodies expressively. So what happens in this game is that, depending on the size of the group, cut the group in half, and each person is standing opposite somebody so that they're in a pair. And these are the participants are lined up and they have their partner opposite them. The facilitator then says that one side is group A and the other side is group B. She or he then asks group A to make a shape. So it's important that there's enough space around each person so that they can use their bodies in whichever way, more freely. Own the space. Okay, B's copy. And release. B's make a shape. A's copy. Release. A's make a shape. B's copy. And release. B's make a shape. A's copy. A's make a shape, and then the B's have to mirror the shape. They have to copy identically the shape that A has made. Then they both relax, and then we say side B, and the B's make a shape that A's then have to copy with their bodies. Once each side, the A's and B's, have had about 3 or 4 turns at replicating each other's shapes, then the facilitator asks Group A to go off and make a collective shape. So they have to, as a group, now make a kind of sculpture, a body sculpture, with the members of their group. So they get about 5 minutes to do this, depending on how quickly they're working. And then the B group is asked to now look at the shape and observe it, and then replicate it, so that they form the body posture of their partner. So when they were in the 2 groups, when they were in the pairs, they were copying the shape of the other person. Now they have to copy the shape of the other person, but as they are in a collective image. And this is done, each group gets a chance. So the A's make a collective image that B's have to copy, and then the A's will observe and see if they managed it. And then the B group makes a collective image that the A's have to replicate, and then the B group will look and see if they have managed that successfully. We're going to start a conversation or dialogue, okay, about the kinds of things that make us feel stressed. So the previous exercise helps the groups to understand how our bodies can be used expressively in a collective way. So after this game, the groups are then asked to remain with each other, groups A and groups B respectively, and they're asked to sit in a circle. As the subject of this workshop is looking at stress and mental calmness and wellness, I then pose to the groups that they discuss or have a discussion around what makes them feel stressed in their lives. And this conversation is to be facilitated usually by somebody who can guide the participants through a process of trust and listening, not probing, not putting too much pressure, to allow that conversation to unfold. We get different views coming in, and eventually they're asked to settle on something that they can, as a group, connect with. In this case, around what makes them feel stressed. Trust and hormones are the things that also influence our mood. So like, even as a woman, when you have your period, usually before, gosh, don't even come near me, I am a horrible mother. Oh, I start crying and things, I'll see an advert and I'll just, and then I'm like, oh gosh, okay, it's those hormones again, pesky hormones. So it's also about knowing your body in that way. 3, 2, 1, focus! This is what we call image theatre, which is by Augusto Boal, but also has been called, a photograph, or it's a tableau of sorts. So they have to create a scene which articulates or tells a story about, in this case, a stressful situation or situations. The group work on that. Both groups work on this. And then what happens is, once they have finished, the main facilitator, in this case myself, will ask each group to form their image, to freeze, and then the other group will come around and we will discuss what we see. We will discuss the expressions, the attitudes, the relationships of the people in the group, whether we think somebody is holding power, whether we think somebody looks upset or sad, and we will tease out why we think they feel this way. What could the possible reasons for this image be? What's going on there? Does he seem so stressed? He seems a bit less stressed, doesn't he? He's chilled. She's like hanging on to all of this pressure. So if they're brother and sister, and is that a situation that happens in homes where there's boys and girls? Yes. That the brothers get treated differently? Yes. Yeah? Okay. So it could be that too. And what's going on up here? The teacher, and they're on chairs. Why do you think that they've put them on chairs? Authority. You see, when we play with levels, like with theatre, everything is symbolic, right? It represents something. So they definitely have power over her, or power in the society. So that would be a teacher.
And Mary looks like she wants a high lifestyle. So maybe that chair, the fact that she's on the chair, bag and ready to move it, she wants that fast life.
Okay. The pressure of society, of like acquiring things, of having wealth. And this over here, education, yeah. And these girls, they look like gossip girls.
Miranda, she's stressing about her.
She's stressing about her.
That she says, it looks like she's stressing.
So like maybe she's the mom or something, worrying about her child. Yeah.
And also if we look at her level, also again, because she's standing on the chair and carrying that, maybe her grade, she's stressing about her grades. She wants high grades.
Yes.
But she's stressed.
Yes.
To getting there.
Yes. And this, and the girl with the board over there?
She's a teacher.
Teacher. And that's also a stressful thing.
Yes.
Okay, so what is interesting about image theatre is that we read in it also from our own perspectives and experiences. So to some, he's the boyfriend, to some, he's the brother. She is a parent, or she is, she is her society or expectation of having things. We don't know yet. But for Boal, who made this theatre, it's not about what's right or wrong, right? It's all the interpretations are real. But it's interesting, he sometimes doesn't even ask the groups what they were supposed to, what their intention was, because the truth is what you read it to be. Once we've had this conversation, the facilitator asks that group to relax and explain their image. It's interesting that you get many different perspectives coming out and many different readings of the image, none of which are incorrect. It's just about building a conversation and creating a dialogue around a subject.
In his own experience, for example, he also has stress, a lot of it, or pressures. She was the mother, and usually what came out in our group, a lot of us are experiencing that our parents have a high expectation and we can't always, we feel stressed because what if we don't fulfill them, and we have our own expectations for ourselves and all of that. Teacher, yes, because school is always stressor for most students here. Mary was actually, being a woman in South Africa, she was like, when you walk in town or at the market, you're always like looking over your shoulder, like someone coming, is someone gonna rip my bag from my body or whatever. So she was, yes, she was that.
This first image is called the actual image, and it's usually followed by 2 further images. The second one being the ideal image. So typically we would work with the same group, and after that actual image they would be asked to have a discussion about an ideal situation for them, a situation where there isn't any stress, so that they would build on that first image and say, for instance, in this example, that the stress is coming from the school situation, and then how would we imagine a perfect situation at school without stress. We repeat the same process with the dialogue for the second, and then the final and last image is called the transitional image, which is how do we get there. So if we understand the situation as it is, and we understand the situation as we want it to be, our last discussion is how do we get to a point of it being stress-free, and that is the final image in this process, which we would do later workshops in the day. So once you've finished the process, it's very important to come together to debrief and to value and respect the participants for their contributions, because these are hard conversations to have, and we need to obviously value that and respect it. It may also be important to discuss that anything that is shared in the room remains in the room, and to bring the group together and understand that there is solidarity and that there is support. It's also important that the students or the participants are able to come to facilitators and other people in positions of authority to discuss anything that may have come up if they're feeling particularly emotional about the experience in the workshop. It's very important that we maintain a space where people are protected and feel safe, and that we respect their right to that.